Yeah, thank you. You feel free. Start now. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining me tonight. My name is Sam Liccardo, and I'm running for mayor of San Jose. And I believe it's not enough to just say you understand the problems facing our city. It's important that our leaders have ideas, specific ideas, for how to fix those problems. I put forward detailed plans on how to address some of the biggest challenges facing our city. You can read those detailed plans online in my book at www.samliccardo.com. But tonight I want to be talking about those ideas with you and other ideas you might have, and I'd love to answer your questions. So I want to hear from you tonight. If you have a question, please press the number 0 on your keypad now or at any time during the call. And you can see my plans online, as I mentioned, at www.samliccardo.com. So feel free to read as we're talking, and certainly if something strikes you, feel free to jump in. For those just joining us, my name is Sam Liccardo. I'm running for mayor of San Jose, and I've put forward detailed plans to make our city safer through smarter, more innovative government. I'm proposing a number of these ideas and I'd like to talk to you about them now. And many folks are joining us now as I'm talking. So I'll just mention a few of these priorities as we gather folks up. First, my top priority is making our city safer. I believe we can do that now by using our resources more efficiently and effectively. I worked with Mayor Reed and the council to reform out-of-control pension costs and use the $25 million in annual savings to hire more police today. We're using that savings to add another police academy this year, so we're hiring faster and restoring pay in order to keep up the officers on board. But that's just the first step. We know it's going to take time to add a lot of officers back to our force, so we can use technology to help keep cops on the job. To help our cops who are on the job. Forgive me. Just last week, the council passed my proposal to create a registry for private security cameras that helps police officers know where cameras are in the city. When a burglary or robbery occurs, they know who they can call to ask for permission to look at the footage. That helps them solve crimes. We've seen in cities like Philadelphia where they've used an online registry in over 200 arrests utilizing this very technology. Again, for those of you who are just joining our call, my name is Sam Liccardo. I'm running for the mayor of San Jose. Thank you for joining us tonight. I look forward to hearing your questions or comments. If you have a question at any time, just please press the number 0 on your keypad, and you will be put in the queue ready to ask a question. As folks are joining us, I'm just going to explain public safety, I think we all know, is at the forefront of many people's minds. And I'd like to highlight just a few of the ideas in my book. You can certainly take time to read it online at www.samliccardo.com. But here are a few of the ideas I've been talking about. Certainly, we know that in addition to using technology, we can use civilians to support our police officers, help make them more efficient and effective out there on the job. We just graduated 25 community service officers, private civilians, who can help law enforcement be more effective, for instance, by taking reports of stolen property, for example, lifting fingerprints, doing other tasks that enable our officers to focus on what they do best, patrolling neighborhoods and investigating cases. More cops and better use of technology certainly can make our streets safer, but there's a lot more we can do in crime prevention. I have proposed in my book how we can leverage the tax that we're currently extracting from marijuana dispensaries to dedicate to after-school programs. If we're able to keep our children safe between 2:30 after the school bell rings until the time that their parents are out of work, able to pick them up, and we can do this for thousands of kids, particularly in some of our most struggling neighborhoods, we can give these children a great opportunity to get ahead in education at the same time that we're making our streets safer for everyone, particularly for those children. I'm also working on an initiative I just released a couple weeks ago, seeing how we can leverage existing developer fees and water district funding and other funding to create summer jobs for at-risk teens. We know that there's a lot of 17, 18, 19-year-olds who can do a lot of work that can help our community, that can, for example, help us renovate our parks, help us save water by building gray water cisterns and replacing lawns with drought-tolerant plants, a lot of things that teens can be doing to help improve our city, they can earn some money, and most importantly, we're giving them a path and opportunity that gives them an alternative to gangs. So I firmly believe we need to provide young people the best possible opportunities, and I'm going to ensure we do that as mayor. If you have any questions about my ideas for public safety, or you have comments, concerns, please press the number 0 now. And we are now ready for our first caller, Clayton from San Jose. Thank you and welcome.
Hi, Sam. I had a question. I was wondering, could you tell me a little bit more about what community service officers are and how they help us save money?
Well, thanks, Clayton, for the question. So community service officers are civilians who are trained in an academy, so they receive very similar training to police officers. They won't be carrying guns or badges, though. These are folks who will be driving around in differently marked cars. They'll have different uniforms on, so people will clearly see they are not police officers. But let me give you an example of how they can really benefit us. We know that officers are often too stretched on high-priority calls to respond to cold burglaries that might have happened 8 hours before where the culprit has long since left. And what we need is someone to show up, lift fingerprints, take a report of what property is missing, take statements from witnesses who may or may not have seen anything. Those are kinds of the basic tasks that can be performed by a community service officer because we know we don't have the number of officers today, police officers, to be able to respond to all those burglaries. Helps our officers be more effective by focusing, obviously, on patrols and the higher priority calls. And then we're able to get that evidence of what property is missing and so forth that helps us link that case with other cases that can ultimately lead to an arrest and a conviction. And so there are lots of ways where we know officers are out there performing tasks, that is, police officers out there performing tasks that we don't need someone with a badge and a gun to be doing. So we want to support them and help them focus on that very highest priority task. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Okay, and maybe if I can just follow up, one last issue you raised, how do they save money? Well, I guess the point is that we know police officers are expensive. In fact, the average officer in a typical year costs us about $195,000, salary and benefits together. And we know they're costly for good reason because it's difficult to be able to recruit the best of the best. We want to have a very high-quality officer here. We know that they are certainly highly trained. That training is expensive. We require them to have at least associate degrees or college degrees, and all of that means you got to pay for it. And so if we have civilians who are community service officers earning less than that but performing many tasks that help those officers be more effective, it enables us to really provide a force multiplier for our officers. So we'll be talking about other issues that can help San Jose, or other proposals, I should say, that can help San Jose be safer. Please press the number 0 on your keypad if you would like to weigh in. Love to hear your ideas about how we can do better in San Jose to keep San Jose safer. Would also be interested in your questions about some of my proposals around after-school activities, jobs programs, and using technology. Let me give you another example of how we can use technology to make our officers more effective. Many Silicon Valley tech companies today are utilizing big data in various ways, particularly data analytics, to help those companies better anticipate trends. For instance, trends in the economy, weather trends, etc. Well, we know also that property crime, that is break-ins, burglaries, and so forth, also behaves in that similar kind of epidemiological approach. That is, that we can anticipate where hotspots of property crime are likely to emerge, and we can use data analytics to help us better anticipate that crime and deploy officers in a way that can ensure we have officers where those hotspots are likely to be. And we don't just rely on crime data. We can look at data from, for example, local high schools. When we know that a lot of kids are cutting out of class in a particular high school, we can anticipate that, in fact, there's going to be a spike in burglaries or daytime vandalism or other kinds of property crime. And so being able to anticipate where those hotspots are can help us anticipate enough to deploy officers more effectively. So I'd like to ensure that everybody knows who's listening that at any time you can ask a question or offer a comment about how we can improve safety in San Jose just by pressing the 0 on your keypad. Okay, so I'd like to take a question now from Megan Carroll. Megan, thank you for joining us. Hi, Megan. Welcome. Hi, Megan. Are you still with us? Okay, I'm not hearing anything from Megan.
I'm sorry.
Hi, Megan. There you are.
Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Actually, I'm Laura Carroll, and I just gave my two. That's okay. She's my daughter.
Good.
I just gave my two questions to somebody, and so I thought that I might already be recorded. But just quickly, two questions. One is, can we do anything to beautify the landscape along the freeways of our city, particularly the 280-1787 interchange, which always just looks like a trash heap to me? And I've traveled to other parts of the state, particularly San Diego, which we know has some beautiful landscaping along the freeways. I know we're in the middle of a drought. I'm not talking about that, but there's just so much trash and graffiti and weeds. Is there something we can do so that our freeways aren't just so appallingly, looking like dumps?
Thanks, Laura, for your question. And I think we know that there is actually a connection between crime and blight, right? When you see the trash, you see the graffiti, people start to have less respect for their environment. It's what the criminologists call the broken windows approach. If there's a window that's broken in an industrial building or a graffiti somewhere, and if it's ignored, we know that within a couple of weeks there are going to be more broken windows. There's going to be more graffiti. And, in fact, there will be a sign of disorder in a community or a neighborhood that will enable other things to happen. Drug dealers, prostitution, things like that happen where there are those kinds of signs of disorder. So it matters that we pay attention to blight of that sort. The plan that I'm going to be releasing in 2 weeks, in fact, you'll be hearing about this quite a bit, is what I call San Jose Gateways. We don't have control over the freeways themselves. Caltrans does. So we have to push hard on Caltrans to do their job. But we do control those entranceways to the city, all those freeway off-ramps where we see trash and graffiti and so forth. And I'm working with a wonderful nonprofit called Downtown Streets Team. We're getting teams of homeless individuals out there cleaning up graffiti and trash in exchange for jobs and food vouchers that enable them to get the work on their record, to be able to get a step up toward self-sufficiency. In addition to the jobs, they get job training through the program, and they get affordable housing as a result of their work. And this is a program we're going to be launching in 2 weeks, and we're basically relying for funding on local companies. You're going to see signs at freeway off-ramps from local companies like TiVo that will say, "Welcome to San Jose, brought to you by TiVo." And we're going to ensure we're going to get flowers planted, we're going to get graffiti cleaned, and a lot of trash picked up. And hopefully folks are going to see that San Jose gateways in our city are impressively beautified through this effort. Okay, so we want to ensure that everybody knows if you have any questions, particularly about safety, please give us a call, or please let us know by pushing the number 0 on your keypad. Okay, I'd like to turn now to Diana, who has a question. I think, Diana, you're from South San Jose, is that right?
Yes.
Hi, Diana.
Yes,
Welcome.
I am. Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Specifically, my question is about the newly constructed police substation here in South San Jose and it not being staffed. And is that part of your plan to staff that if you are elected mayor?
Yeah, absolutely, Diana, and I appreciate the question. As you probably know, about a little more than a decade ago, several bond measures were proposed and approved by voters to build a lot of things, including the South San Jose police station. Unfortunately, because of what I would call a lot of poor fiscal planning, particularly around pensions and retirement benefits, the city was left paying $200 million a year more on retirement benefits than we were a decade ago, and that prevented us from hiring the staff we needed to actually operate any of those buildings. So we had a lot of libraries, as you know, that are closed 3 days a week, community centers that were vacant for years before we could open them, and, of course, the South San Jose Police Station. What we're doing now is we're using it as a training center for the police, and so cadets are there now, and they will continue to be there training. My goal is to ensure as we're hiring more officers, and we're doing that now, and we're improving retention, we're going to be able to staff that South San Jose Police Station within a year and a half if we're able to continue hiring at a good pace. It's going to take some pushing, but I believe it's important because we know a lot of folks in South San Jose could really benefit from the improved response time. So, Diana, I appreciate your question, and please know I'm pushing hard with you.
Great. Thank you. That's good news.
Hey, thanks, Diana. Thanks for the question. Thanks for joining us in particular.
Sure.
I know we have also a question from America from the Rancho Santa Teresa neighborhood. America, thanks for joining us.
I would like to know how many there are in the police force in San Jose, because I would assume that our population, we've lived here almost 50 years, has grown considerably. And I know my daughter lives at Silver Creek, and they had a home invasion last week, and that's a gated community, and it was an armed robbery, which then I saw that there were more than 13 burglaries in less than 11 days in San Jose, where we used to be the safest city in the nation.
Yes.
And now what on earth is happening?
Yeah, great question, America. So let me tell you, first of all, we have a little over 1,000 officers now. The number is around 1,015, roughly. And we are currently hiring through our third academy this year, and we're going to keep hiring at a very brisk pace. We know that many officers are nearing retirement age and have been retiring because they're at that age, 52 or 53, where officers typically
and also
retire.
Because they're not happy with the city.
Exactly. Yeah. And
you know, before we fix anything, we have to have everybody on the same page, or the citizens suffer as a consequence. Because the police department, my brother was a police department on the border of Rio Grande City, where all hell is breaking loose with immigration there. His life was on the line almost on every single day. There is no way in hell that he ended up with a retirement like they do here in San Jose. Nowhere near it.
Yeah, you're right.
And he stayed in there till the end. But when we have people working and they create, all you need is one bad apple to poison the minds of everybody else in the police department against the city. We cannot work together. It cannot work. It does not work. And before we start hiring more, we better get our house cleaned up and do something about what's happening now.
America, thank you. I agree. And you can rest assured that I'm very focused on improving morale in the department. And as we're hiring, we're going to ensure that as we hire the best and the brightest, we're also going to be ensuring that these officers are paid well. We restored pay 11% last year when we came to agreement with the union. But as you know, we can't both pay people well and pay them well to retire. If we're going to pay people well to work, then you can't continue to expect that people are going to be retiring at age 52 earning a $104,000 pension. And that's the case today. For the last 5 years, the average pension for police and fire is $104,000 a year. That increases 3% every year, by the way. So by the time they're in their 70s, because they often retire at 52 or 53, by the time they're in their 70s, it's about $200,000. And, of course, we can't afford that. So the good news is this. Our police chief has done an incredible job. Since 2012, they have reduced crime. All the serious felonies in the aggregate have been reduced 19% since 2012. And that's because of our hardworking police officers because our community has been stepping up helping, and because we've got a chief who's really been focused on bolstering gang prevention and bolstering patrol, in particular, neighborhood patrols. And we need to continue pushing on neighborhood patrols and gang prevention, and we'll continue to see improvements in crime. What we know, though, is that because of all the social media involved around crime, whenever there's a burglary today, and if it's 8 blocks away, we'll know about it instantly. And that wasn't always true in the past. And so we're going to keep focusing on ensuring we use our the existing resources we have more effectively, more efficiently, and ensuring that our officers are deployed as efficiently as we possibly can. Okay, I want to remind everyone who's joined us that anytime you'd like to join the call, feel free to push the number 0, and you can ask a question or offer a comment. I see Mohan. Mohan, I believe you're from the Villages. Is that right? Welcome to.
I am here.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I sure can.
Yeah, this is Mohan. I'm at the Villages. I heard you here last Thursday. And
well, thank you. I guess you attended the debate.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to ask the question because we wrote them and gave it to, and they sorted some things out.
Sure.
One of
What's
the
your
things
question now,
I have, the question is, Dave Cortese has a flyer coming out. It's in all the mailboxes today, and you look like the guy who don't have an answer to the police shortfall or 400 people or don't know how to compromise on the and retain the quality of police officers, and it's like 3 strikes against you if you saw the flyer today.
Oh yes, there'll be lots more flyers, Mohan.
I know, but what I'm saying is you don't come across when you present your plans as somebody who knows how to solve this problem of police officer shortfall and crime. And you have to do something different than what you're describing. We have this historical problem with pensions. We can't afford to pay, and the retirement benefits and the pay. And I don't know how other municipalities are able to attract our officers. They must have more money than we do.
Well, there's several issues going on there, Mohan, but let me just tell you very clearly what my plan is, because unlike my opponent, I've actually put a plan forward, and it's been approved by the council, and we are seeing crime come down in this city for the first time in 2 years. And what the plan is very simple. We identified over $30 million in savings from fiscal reform and pension reform that we would use to accelerate hiring, and in fact to restore pay too of our existing officers to ensure that they would be more likely to stay on board. And what we're seeing now from the new cadets who have graduated from the academy is, unlike 8 or 10 months ago, they're now staying on board at much, much higher rates. And so the good news is we're able to hire more and keep folks on board, whereas before we didn't have the money to hire at all. And I think something that's often overlooked is this. We lost 323 officers net after the recession until about mid-2012. And the reason why we lost all those officers was because we ran out of money. We couldn't hire any officers to replace the officers who were retiring, and who wouldn't retire if you could get a $100,000 pension at age 52. And we had to fire officers. We had to lay officers off because our budget deficits were so enormous as a result of all these pension burdens. And so all of those departures were before we ever even passed pension reform in this city. Now with pension reform, we finally have an opportunity to have the money to be able to hire officers to replace those who leave, and to hire more aggressively, and to increase pay. And all those things are going to have a positive impact. It's going to take time, but in the meantime, we simply have to use our officers more effectively and efficiently and deploy them more effectively. And I can tell you today, Mohan, and I don't believe me on this, look it up for yourself in the FBI statistics. We are the city with the lowest violent crime rate of any of the 10 largest cities in California. We continue to be a very safe city, and more importantly, we are getting safer since 2012. And again, don't believe me, check it out on sjpd.org. These are the statistics that are presented both by San Jose Police Department and the FBI. And we're able to reduce crime by being more effective with the resources we have. We don't have to go back to the old days, as my opponent would like us to do, and simply have high pensions that nobody can possibly afford, because we know we won't be able to hire officers if we do those kinds of if we go backward on pension reform. So at this time, I'd like to ask a simple question and ask folks to respond to this question. I'm just going to pause in the questioning for a moment because I'd like to hear your feedback with a very simple question and answer. As you all know, I supported pension reform because out-of-control pension costs were crowding out other very important priorities, including our current safety needs. In fact, in the decade between 2001 and 2011, our police department budget actually grew by $100 million, yet we had 300 fewer officers. The reason is that paying for retirement benefits forced layoffs among current officers, and we had to have a hiring freeze. We couldn't hire any. The problem was only going to get worse, and that was the wrong direction, and that's why I worked so hard to reform pension costs. And we're now using those savings. My opponent in this case voted for those huge pension increases and said that we should undo reform and not defend the ballot measure that 70% of our voters supported in 2012. This will send us right back into the yearly deficits and force more layoffs and cuts to services. And, of course, we'll leave our kids with a huge tab. It's $3 billion today. Obviously, I disagree. I want to hear from you. If you think we can improve safety by spending smarter, please press the number 1. If you think that we should spend more and reduce spending on other priorities to spend more money on police, press 2. While we're waiting for the results, we'll have another question. I would like to go now to Marvin, who is also in South San Jose. Marvin, welcome to our show.
Hello, Mr. Liccardo. This is Marvin.
Hi, Marvin. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, a couple of issues. One of them is what's your proposal to get new academy graduates from leaving the force? Is there anything, will there be anything put in place to, on a contract agreement to at least keep them long enough to get some use out of them out of the academy before they leave and go somewhere else?
Yeah, that's a great question, Marvin, and it's a question I've been hearing quite a bit. People are very concerned about the fact that cadets have been leaving, and it certainly doesn't help when the head of the police union has been encouraging recruiters from other cities to come to the police union hall to recruit away our new cadets. Certainly, I've been pushing hard to see how we can require some kind of payback, and if a cadet chooses to leave and go to another city after our taxpayers have paid for their training. And what I proposed last year was essentially a loan idea. That is, that before an individual signs up for the academy, that they would agree that they would take out a loan from the city for their training costs. And if they decided to leave, say, within the first 5 years after the graduation of the academy, they would take that loan or that debt with them to, say, Mountain View, and Mountain View would have to pay for their training. That would seem to at least keep the taxpayers whole. The problem, of course, is with all sensible ideas is that attorneys always get involved. And right now, our attorneys are trying to sort out whether or not we can legally move forward with this. Whether we can do it by imposition, that is, unilaterally with the city council requiring it, or if we need to do it by negotiation, and we'll have a new contract negotiation next year with our police officers, I want to make sure that this is in place within the next 2 years. That is, we'll be signing a new contract in 2015. We should have a contract that requires that new cadets understand that they're on the hook if they decide to benefit from San Jose taxpayers to get trained to go become Los Gatos finest. Here's the good news. What we're seeing with cadets who are graduating now is because we've been restoring pay, the pay is coming back, cadets are staying on board at much, much higher rates. So I think the future is looking very good, particularly as crime is coming down in the city. Marvin, thanks for your question.
Yeah, I got one more issue. Hello?
So, Dave, I understand you have a question. Thanks for joining us. Dave from Berryessa?
Yeah. As I've been listening to you tonight, you talk about the police and the police are going to fix this and the police are going to fix that. I've got a concern, and it's called root cause analysis. If we look at where is the root cause of crime, what's causing it? Is it unemployment? We had a house in this district last year. The police were called 4 times over the 4th of July week. It's a Section 8 housing. Nobody in there was working. They're out there smoking drugs during the day. And it continues on and on. I made numerous phone calls, and nobody wants to be bothered. Let's wait until the damn windows are broken, and then we'll go out there and do it. If we wait, then it's too late. And this story keeps going on and on and on. The fix is you can't wait until the windows are broke. We've got to be looking at it beforehand.
Yeah, I agree. And frankly, we don't, even if we had 3 times the number of officers we have today, we don't have enough officers to chase all the after effects of problems in our community that we can deal more effectively by getting in front of them. Let me explain what I mean. In the context you described, where you've got a housing apartment complex nearby where there's a lot of problem activity, drugs, gangs, whatever it might be, we need to use our attorneys. We need to be suing landlords who are not evicting their tenants, who are engaging in criminal behavior and impacting our neighborhoods. Just last week, you may have seen on KPIX, I'm leading the charge to see how we can revoke the permit or the status of a bar that's in the Northside neighborhood, where we know it's been causing all kinds of problems with prostitution and drug dealing and fights and violence in the nearby community. And rather than repeating the same tired, broken saw of having the police go out there and warn the owner and bust heads and everything else, I want to ensure that we close the bar down, get that use out of the neighborhood. And so I'm leading the charge essentially to change the land use. And the bar's going to go out of business because they obviously can't control their own patrons. And so they should be moving on. And of course, as you can probably see from my book, which is currently online at www.samliccardo.com, and a new edition, in fact, is coming out this week, I talk about a lot of different prevention strategies. For example, we know an awful lot of our teens in the summertime are out there engaging a lot of problematic behavior because they're not engaged in something better. I want to see more of our teens in jobs, and youth jobs are a critical path to giving these kids an opportunity to really get ahead in life at the same time that we're keeping them away from gangs. I specifically proposed 3 weeks ago, at the time that the Water District's spending a lot of money on outreach, for example, to reduce water consumption as we're battling our current drought situation. I'd like to see teens involved in those jobs after school and during the summertime, distributing information to homeowners who are not quite doing very well in keeping the water use down, and replacing lawns with drought-tolerant species and installing gray water cisterns, all kinds of things that teens can be doing in jobs that help the community and keep us safer because we're giving them opportunities rather than simply chasing after them when they've got nothing better to be doing. So we'll continue to keep on pushing these proactive efforts to avoid creating the problem in the first place. And I really appreciate the question, Dave, and the intention of the question. And I want to remind all of our listeners, at any time you can join our call by pressing the number 0 and ask a question or raise a concern. I see Carrie is calling. Carrie from San Jose,
Hi.
Welcome. Hi, Carrie.
Hi. First, thank you for your voluntary registry for the cameras. I think the surveillance camera registry is a good example of something practical that doesn't cost us a lot of money and helps people to participate and help keep the city safe and protect our police dollars. So thank you so much for putting that idea forward and successfully bringing it to fruition. I also wanted to ask, what do you think that neighbors and community members can do to help in terms of public safety?
Thanks, Carrie. I really appreciate that question because that's so important. As we know, the most important weapon that the police have against crime are the eyes and the ears of the community. And that's one reason why I want to restore community policing. That is, instead of moving officers out of neighborhoods every 6 months, as the current police contract requires, I want to keep officers in neighborhoods so you get to know them. You get to know your beat officer, and you develop relationships, and trust emerges, and you can actually communicate about what you're seeing with a local gang house or drug dealers that you think are over by the local high school, for example. Where a community can really play a role is first getting involved in a neighborhood watch program or other similar program with your neighborhood association. Certainly, there are great social media tools like Nextdoor. There may be one in your own neighborhood. Nextdoor operates in many neighborhoods in the city. And if you go, I think it's nextdoor.org, if I'm not mistaken, is a website. It's a good way to find out and sign up. That way you can keep each other informed about what's going on in the community, certainly. But what we learned through working with several communities was that it was often through very simple efforts, measures, that people were able to make their community safer. I'll give you one quick example. In a Spanish-speaking neighborhood in the southern part of my district, it's called Washington Guadalupe, we helped parents organize walking patrols because they were very concerned about gang activity in the afternoons, and they were concerned about the safety of their kids walking home from Washington Elementary. And so we ensured that all of the parents had phones, which they did anyway, and they all had notepads and whistles and so forth, and they took designated routes, walking the same path with each other. It was mostly the moms who were available, who were not working that afternoon, who would walk particular routes with other moms and help kids go home. And while they were doing that, they would take notes about where the graffiti was, where street lights were out, etc. And through that effort, we had more adults walking repeatedly, and it started to change the environment. Because there were more eyes out there on the street, the gang members felt less comfortable being out there. Now, of course, we don't want the parents getting involved in confronting anyone or even talking to them. They don't even have to. Just being out there walking was enough. And then, of course, we started responding to the graffiti complaints and the street lights that they observed as they were walking. And slowly, we've been able to help transform that community and significantly reduce the gang violence. And so it's often these very simple ideas that simply get people engaged, talking to one another, and getting more eyes out on the street. I think we can do more things like this, Carrie, and I'm not sure which neighborhood you live in. If you're comfortable telling me, I might be able to refer you to folks who are particularly engaged.
Mm-hmm. Alum Rock, Berryessa area.
Alum Rock, Berryessa, okay. So you do have Berryessa Citizens Advisory Council there in Berryessa, which is a certainly well-organized group. And if you email me at sam@licardoformayor.com, we'd be happy to connect you to folks out there who can at least tell you what they've got going and see if you are interested in getting involved. Great. Thanks so much for the question, Carrie. Mm-hmm. We're going to turn now to Pamela, who has a question. Pamela from San Jose, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Sam. This is Pamela Kerman, and I'm calling from South San Jose. And I, heard you earlier talking about the program to kind of beautify some of the freeways, and you talked about getting the homeless involved. And I'm just wondering, on a broader basis, what you are planning to do about the homeless problem in San Jose. And I'm saying that out of compassion, not out of disgust, because I see so many homeless people, and I'm very concerned about them and their safety, and there's so many out there.
No, you're right, and it's a horrible tragedy as we see it. The homelessness challenge just is really exploded in every city in California, it seems. I hear that from my colleagues in San Francisco and Santa Cruz and throughout, and it's really been a sort of a perfect storm of bad things happening between all the cities have lost their funding for affordable housing from redevelopment agencies because of the elimination of those agencies from the state government, and we've seen rents rise rapidly, of course, and so many people were impoverished in the last recession. So these are big challenges, and there's certainly in many ways, the cost of addressing this challenge in a meaningful way in Santa Clara County alone is somewhere on the order of $500 million to house all those folks. We obviously don't have those resources today. So what I've been focusing really on is how we can use our existing resources more cost effectively. You may have seen a proposal that came out about a year ago from me and several colleagues joined me on this. The council just approved it 2 months ago. We're focusing on motels that are deteriorating and often sort of occupied by the world's oldest profession, in many cases along Monterey Road, North First Street, and other places, and focusing on those motels where we can easily renovate those and use them for housing the homeless. We can do so much less expensively than building new units, which we just don't have a lot of money for. And so we're starting that pilot program this fall, working with a nonprofit that will hopefully very soon be identified, and starting with 2 or 3 motels. And the hope is that as we're proving up this concept, then we can expand that as well. I've also been working on different projects around seeing if we can build micro housing, that is very small units, about 150 square feet, that you're starting to see in a few cities throughout the country where you provide the basic sewage and electricity and the basic necessities, and we're able to build many of those units for very little cost, often as little as $5,000 to $7,000 a unit. And that can provide a transitional means as we're moving folks into a path of greater self-sufficiency. The critical thing, of course, is that ultimately we get folks plugged into programs where they can get jobs, get job training, do what they need to do to get back on their feet. So those are a couple initiatives that I've been working on, Pamela. And, of course, I mentioned the Downtown Streets team and the Jobs First approach that they employ. What's true about all these programs is that, we think they can help. We think they will reduce the size of the problem, but no one of these programs is going to solve the problem. This is a very big challenge. And that's why I'm pushing hard in November when this comes before the council to impose an impact fee on developers who are really benefiting considerably from the high housing costs that we all see and experience. I don't blame them for benefiting. They certainly deserve to profit, but they should be paying a fee that helps the city work with nonprofits to build more affordable housing and move homeless off the street. It only makes sense if they're benefiting extraordinarily at a time of high housing costs, we use some of that benefit to help those we need to just get off the street. And obviously it makes us all safer because we know an awful lot of the crime is impacted by folks, who may not be well, who are on the street. If they have mental health issues, drug issues, et cetera, it's not safe for them. It's not safe for others. So a safer city is one in which we move folks who are homeless into a place where they've got a reliable ceiling over their head. Anyway, thank you very much, Pamela, for the question.
Thank you.
Great. And Alan, I know you have a question. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for your patience staying on the call.
Yeah, hi, Sam. I was wondering, the police officers, how long do they have to work before they can get their retirement? Is it maybe, you mentioned they get retirement at 52. Seems to me that's pretty young to get a retirement.
Yeah, that's a typical age, 52, 53, and you're right, it is very young. And of course, because as we know, at 52 or 53, many folks will go on and work second jobs, right, and second careers, and who would blame them? Because at that age, I'm not that far from there myself. So in any event,
but you're still prime, and you can, you want to work to, just to keep alive, You don't want to sit and watch TV when you're 52.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
what is
and
it? What is
it's a physically demanding job, and for that reason, many years ago when they designed these retirement programs, they would design them so that folks could retire early. I don't blame anybody from moving on to another job. The question is, can we afford to pay somebody at age 52 or 53 $104,000 a year to retire, and ultimately, a couple $100,000 by the time they're in their 70s? And the answer, of course, is no. That's why we have a $3 billion unfunded debt. The reason why it got to this place is really it was through a series of decisions. The city council approved benefits that ensured that officers could get, for instance, a higher cost of living adjustment, as Dave Cortese voted for in 2001, or they could get a higher rate of accrual every year for each year they worked. And so all of those small incremental improvements, or I should say increases in costs to the pension benefit, happened over a series of years, and my opponent Dave Cortese voted for 4 of them in between 2001 and 2006. And that has really created this extraordinary situation that we're facing today. And frankly, many cities throughout the state are facing this. Some have not been quite as forthright as we have about fessing up to the size of these costs. But it has long been the case that officers have been able to retire at that early age. Typically, you get the maximum benefit at 30 years of service, although usually around 25 years is when it becomes quite logical for them to retire, because then if they take a job with another law enforcement agency, there are ways for them essentially to benefit by continuing to work and still accrue the pension benefit. So typically between 25 and 30 years of service is the standard departure time. And it has always been the case in San Jose and virtually every other city in California that when they get to 25, 27, 29 years, they're leaving. And it just makes more financial sense for them to do it. You're going to see a proposal that's coming to council tomorrow in which we're trying to create incentive for folks to stay on, to continue working, because we know officers in their mid-50s have great value, particularly because of their experience and skill, and we want to encourage them to stay on board. And so the council will be voting to start those negotiations tomorrow, and I hope that we will be successful. I think it's important that we keep people working as long as they're willing and interested in working, particularly where they can add value to our city. So I very much appreciate the question, Alan. Did I answer that for you?
Maybe 35 years or 40 years, but nevertheless, thanks for answering that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Alan, I certainly appreciate that sentiment, because I can tell you I'm going to be working well into my 70s or 80s, given what they're paying me
I'm
now.
80 and I'm working.
But we recognize, obviously, there is a uniquely demanding nature in police work, and so for that reason, obviously, the system is as it is. The real question is, how much do we pay at that age of retirement? That's the important question, it seems to me.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alan. So I'd like to ask one other question, a poll question for folks. This is certainly a critical election. There are many important issues before us. We've been talking about public safety mostly. My campaign is based on the idea that we can make our city safer through smarter government, not by spending more, but by spending smarter, and improving services not by breaking the budget, but by being more innovative and more cost-effective. Tonight, I'm asking for your support. If I can count on your support, please press the number 1 now. We'd appreciate knowing if you are supportive in this campaign. And certainly, in the meantime, I look forward to talking about whatever else is on your mind. Please press the number 0 if you'd like to ask a question or offer a comment. So I'd like to take a question now from Larry here in San Jose. Larry, welcome.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Larry.
I was calling in to find out what is the debt of San Jose, including the unfunded liabilities, and why do the government unions get such sweetheart deals on their pensions?
Yeah.
How did all that happen? I know the answer. I just want to know if you'll tell me the truth.
Yeah, sure. So the amount of the unfunded liability on the retirement side is $3 billion. It's $3 billion with a B. And that's the combination of the pension and other retirement benefits, including health care or health insurance. And so obviously that's an extraordinarily large hole that was created by many years of, I think, bad decision-making by elected officials in this city. Now, the question is, how do we get there? I don't blame the unions. I'll be very frank with you. The unions are not endorsing me or supporting me in this race, but I don't blame the unions. Because unions were doing exactly what unions are supposed to do. They push for more benefits and more pay, and that's what we expect them to do. The folks I blame are those who are elected officials who did not have the backbone to say no. That's our job as leaders. That will be my job as your mayor. I will have the strength of character to say no when I know that the demands are too great. And in this case, the demands are $3 billion too great. That's $3 billion of debt that you and I and our children are going to have to bear as a result of, I think, poor leadership. And I've been very clear about my support for pension reform. My opponent's been very clear that he will refuse to defend the will of the voters, 70% of the electorate that supported pension reform in 2012, as the unions are suing to challenge that. And I just think that's the wrong approach for a city facing $3 billion in unfunded debt. Did I answer your question, Larry?
Do you realize what's going to happen to San Jose if these ridiculous pensions don't get reined in?
You know
Detroit, right?
Well. And
you know Detroit, right?
Yep, you said it. I mean, there were plenty of folks who were quietly talking about whether or not the city needed to declare bankruptcy in some of our darkest days in 2010 and 2011. And I absolutely refuse to allow it to happen. This is not going to be a city that's bankrupt. And because of our efforts to reform pensions in 2012, we've now run 3 consecutive budgets with small surpluses in which we're actually restoring modestly, not as fast as we'd all like to, but we're modestly restoring city services. And we're going to keep pushing, and we got to pay off that debt, and we're going to have to do it over time, but we're going to pay off that debt and ensure that we start to provide the services that are...
Well, there's one other thing you need to do. You got to stop all this socialist program that you bring up.
Well, Larry, I appreciate your question and your comments. I'm going to move on now to Angel in Evergreen. Angel, thanks for joining us.
Hello, this is Angel from Evergreen area. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Angel.
Thanks for your patience, and I'd like to address your attention for the concern of a public safety issue in Evergreen area. There's a public park called the Fowler Park, which is a newer park, and in this Evergreen area, in the past 15 years I've lived here, this is a very homogeneous area. The seniors, they know each other, maybe cultural difference or whatever. We have a lot of immigrants. So the seniors, they know each other. They came out of dinner, they walk, and they dance together. They do a lot of things together. It's a very nice neighborhood. And just on Labor Day night, and just in the Fowler Park in the bathroom, a senior gentleman was brutally attacked on his face and everywhere, and it was videotaped, and this tape was aired, I think, the next day in major news stations. And we all watched that video, and it's very heartbreaking, and we felt it's like our parents who would be beaten like that. You know, it's like it can happen to any of our parents and make me feel like this neighborhood is not safe anymore. The question, though, is whoever the criminal later on was caught, he has 9 criminal records on his whatever, and he doesn't even belong to this community. Just because it's a public park and then people come here for parties and everything, and he's one of those invitation. I don't know. He was invited friends for the party that day, and he just randomly went into the bathroom and beaten this gentleman just like that. It's very bloody. My concern is...
I know it well.
So my concern is that how do we get rid of those people who don't even, they do not even belong to this community? We don't know where they come from. They just come here for party and everything, and they make it such a chaotic situation. And there are more crimes in this neighborhood by robbery and kind of just since 2 years ago. Every month we heard something. So that's my concern, that if there's any possibility, for instance, you have strict public park registration system so that when people register for any events, you monitor their background or something, who doesn't belong here or whatever, they should be filtered. And this actually become more a concern of this community. Another thing is they report about drug dealing after dawn. It's never safe anymore for us to go out to walk in this park.
Angel, I've heard a lot of concerns about Fowler Park. This seems to be a real hot spot right now. in this city, and I've heard from several of your neighbors because I was just out in Evergreen 2 days ago at a gathering, and so I recognize that. Of course, that brutal attack was a horrific incident, and we never want to see that again in this city, particularly a city where we've been accustomed for being so safe for so long. And let me say this first, with regard to hotspots, as we're seeing in Fuller Park, I believe strongly in an approach called hotspot policing. That was really developed in New York back in the 90s, relying on data that helps us understand where those hotspots are emerging. And I mentioned data analytics earlier in the discussion, and I did so because this is a tool that can help us anticipate those kinds of hotspots and focus our scarce resources, that is, police officers in those parks, in those neighborhoods where we're seeing the most crime, because we know we can be much more effective where we're able to engage in that kind of hotspot policing. The other thing we need to be doing, as I mentioned a little while ago, was, our officers are going into neighborhoods not knowing where those hotspots are because they're so often new to the neighborhoods. They're rotating as often as every 6 months, and so unless we develop the familiarity of every officer with the neighborhood, so they get to know you, get to know the store owners, the teachers, others who can help provide them with information, they can't be as effective as they would be. And so I want to ensure we keep officers in neighborhoods for much longer than 6 months at a time, so we can start to build relationships again between the police and a community. That community policing approach is what made us such a great safe city. We started that back in the 1980s when our rates of violent crime were much higher than they are today, and that has helped enormously. I want to go back to using those kinds of approaches. I think we can continue to make San Jose safer. And now we are approaching, let's see here, we're just about at the end of our discussion. I just want to ask a third question. And, of course, I want to thank everyone for being on the call tonight. These questions have been very good. We have time for just one or two questions more. But before we get to those, I want to say how much I appreciate these insightful comments. I'm running for mayor of San Jose because I want to put innovative ideas to work for our community. I don't have all the answers. I'm willing to work with anyone, though, and talk to anyone and keep digging with you to find solutions to all the challenges we face. I hope you join my campaign tonight by signing up to make calls, knock on doors, host a house party, donate any way that you'd like to be a part of our campaign. We'd love to have you. So if you'd like to sign up and knock on doors with us, or please press the number 1. I'll be out there knocking on doors all weekend myself. I hope you can join us. If you're interested in making phone calls, please press the number 2. We'd certainly love to have you working with us on our phone banks. If you're interested in doing something else, whether it's volunteering here in the office or donating or anything like that, please press the number 3. We'd love to have you as part of our campaign. Okay, now I'm going to take a question from Barbara in San Jose. Barbara, thank you for your call.
Hi, thank you for
Barbara.
taking
Welcome.
my call. I wanted to ask you something about something that concerns my family a lot. Not to belittle all of this discussion about the police force and all of that. Very, very important. Our next door neighbor is a retired San Jose cop. We have a retired Los Gatos cop up the street from us, and we just love these people. But I want to talk to you about the arts in San Jose. My family runs a theater company. We have for 10 years. It's a San Jose-based company, and we do it at a profit. We don't ask for grants. We don't need much in the way of donations. And we were really shocked when the rep went belly up. I mean, actually, we weren't surprised because we had been to their productions, and they were pretty awful. And my daughter's a professional actress, and the scuttlebutt in the local community of professionals was their productions were not very good, and we stopped being subscribers and all of that. And the problem is, and we were invited to the city's meeting concerning the rep a couple months ago. It affects our prestige as a major city in America. To not have an equity theater in San Jose is pretty bad, and it makes it it's no fun to go downtown. There's nothing there but community theater is really not very good. I mean, they do make a good effort, but it's not the same as a professional theater company. Just your thoughts.
Yeah, I know others share your views on this, and Barbara, I do think we still have some fantastic arts groups, and I hope you do still continue to come down. Particularly if you hope you come down on first Friday of every month to South First Street and take in some great visual arts and all the arts activity that's out on South First, which has really become a dynamic, vibrant place in the last couple of years as more people are discovering it. But you're right, we've got a lot of work to do in reviving the Rep and in what will ultimately happen there at the Rep. But it really starts, it seems to me, with bringing people into downtown. Because, after billions of dollars of redevelopment investment, and some of it wasn't all that good, and frankly, some of it was wasteful, what I have seen as I came into office, and we no longer had all that redevelopment money, is really the way to revitalize a downtown core isn't with public money, it's with people. And the downtown core is currently under an incredible wave of development of high-rise housing and mid-rise housing that's going to bring thousands of people into the core. And I pushed hard to make that happen because all of those people who live there in the downtown are going to become the patrons of the arts organizations. They're going to be the board members of those arts organizations because those arts organizations are in their neighborhood. And so we first have to start by creating a neighborhood in the downtown that embraces culture and arts. And that's the way it works in major cities throughout the country. It tends to be those urban downtown core dwellers that will be the most reliable season ticket holders, for example. And so by doing so, by bringing vibrancy in the downtown with people living there, then, of course, retail and shops and restaurants follow. And we're starting to see that even as well. Now that all the high-rise towers are under construction, we've seen Whole Foods has broken ground. They'll be open in a month or so. We saw 43 restaurants and retail open in just an 18-month period of time. Really a remarkable amount of revitalization that's just starting to happen now. And I think ultimately with all that activity, we're going to see more patronage for the arts, and that's going to help these organizations survive. I agree that a vibrant cultural scene is really essential in all of that. We need to do this not just because we love the arts, although that's a good reason enough, but because we know it's critical for us to attract those talented workers who drive innovative companies today. And we know those companies want to be where those workers, where that talent is. And so it's essential for our continued growth as a city and really as a valley that we create a vibrant urban center in our downtown. And so I've been charting a path that doesn't require a lot of public spending to get there. We've done enough of that, frankly. I'm relying on the private sector to get us there. I'm relying on us getting out of the way to get high-rise development underway, which is happening now. I've pushed to cut fees on parking, for example, that's brought 161 employers into downtown. We're going to keep building on that. We just had the Mercury News announce they're moving in. A patent office is opening in just a few months. A lot of great things are happening. As we continue to enhance that vibrancy, I think you're going to see much more support for the cultural institutions that we need to sustain. Barbara, thank you so much for your question. I appreciate you jumping in. And I want to, I guess I see now we're really out of time. And so I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. The engagement level of residents of San Jose is always impressive and inspires me. I know not all of you came to this call supporting my campaign, and some of you probably still have some questions before you make up your mind. But I'm so grateful for your willingness to participate in this dialogue. For more information on my plan for San Jose and my campaign, please visit www.sammccarter.com. I look forward to working with you to move San Jose forward with a smarter government and a safer city. Thank you, and please have a wonderful night.